Okay, so are you ready for a deep dive that's a little bit out there? We are talking about finding your soulmate with a little inspiration from, wait for it, Ghostbusters. Yeah, you heard right. We're diving into this playful article. It uses everyone's favorite paranormal eliminators to give, honestly, some surprisingly solid relationship advice. Whether you are like actively looking for love or just working on yourself, this is about really unpacking those relationship goals. Think of it as your personalized pep talk from like a witty relationship guru who just happens to love proton packs. And to help us bust through some of those myths and misconceptions, we have an expert on relationships joining us today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me. I have to admit, this is a new one for me, even after years of working with couples.
Get ready because this article like jumps right in. It uses this whole ghost hunting metaphor to talk about figuring out what you actually want in a partner. They even talk about making a list of must-haves. You know, like classic, must-love dogs, can tolerate my endless Star Wars rambling, but then they throw in this gem, must own a unicorn. Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But it makes you think, right? How many of us get tripped up by these like totally unrealistic expectations?
More than you'd think. That playful example actually highlights something really important. Before jumping into the dating world,
Yeah.
you got to take stock of your values. The article talks about prioritizing non-negotiables versus nice-to-haves, and I think that's key. Like, what are those core qualities that you absolutely need in a partner for a relationship to really work? And what are those things that, while great to have, aren't deal breakers?
It's so easy to get caught up in wanting it all. But like the article says, clinging to those, like unicorn expectations, can really set you up for disappointment. And nobody wants to be stuck in that kind of ghost trap. And speaking of traps, this article had some pretty funny advice about upgrading your own quote unquote ghost trap. And by that, they mean working on yourself before you try to catch a partner. They even go there with the whole like change your sheets more than once a semester thing.
It's about putting your best self forward, absolutely. But on a deeper level, it's about genuine self-growth. The article uses humor, but it's getting at something important. We often attract what we project. Are you taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally? Are you doing things that bring you joy and make you a well-rounded person? These things matter in building healthy relationships.
It's so true. And these days, with dating apps and like curated online personas, it's easy to feel pressure to present this perfect version of ourselves. But this article warns against that. It actually says, don't change the core of who you are. If you pretend to be someone you're not, you'll end up with a soulmate who's in love with your fake persona. That's pretty deep.
It is. Building a connection based on authenticity that's crucial. It's about finding someone who appreciates you for you. Quirks and all, not some like idealized version you've constructed. Think about your own relationships, romantic or otherwise. Have you ever felt pressure to be someone you're not? How did that affect the connection?
Yeah, it's so easy to like lose ourselves trying to fit this mold of the one. But you're right, authenticity is so important.
Absolutely. And building a relationship on anything less is like building a house on sand. It's not going to last.
Okay, so we've like fine-tuned our love radar and we're working on ourselves. What's next in this ghost-busting quest for love? Well, this article says it's time to cast a wide proton stream. Basically, it's all about putting yourself out there. Online dating, joining groups, even just being open to conversations with new people. Like they even use this funny example of meeting someone while they're like dressed as Gandalf at the grocery store.
Oh, that visual is amazing. But, they have a point. It's about expanding your social circles
Yeah.
and pushing past your comfort zone. We often limit ourselves. But stepping outside of those boundaries, even in small ways, can lead to some really rewarding connections, whether they're romantic or not.
Right. They also talk about saying yes to more things because, sometimes the universe is trying to nudge you out of that Netflix and chill routine, but you're too busy saying, sorry, I have plans with my couch.
Oh, it is so easy to get comfortable. But being open to new experiences is key. And look, not every social outing has to be about finding a soulmate. It's about connecting with people, period. You never know what you'll learn, who you'll meet, or even just like what you'll discover about yourself in the process.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about like getting ready and putting ourselves out there, but this is where the article gets really interesting. It shifts from like catching a soulmate to keeping one, which let's be honest is the bigger challenge, right? They call this section soulmate containment.
Yeah, it's a funny way to frame it. But yeah, building a lasting and meaningful connection, that's where the real work comes in.
Totally. For example, they say to wait a few dates before revealing your zombie apocalypse survival plan. Solid advice. No need to scare off a potential soulmate with your doomsday bunker blueprints on the first date. But joking aside, they touch on some really important stuff. Open communication, showing appreciation, maintaining your own identity in a relationship, all like crucial things.
You know what I found fascinating? They connect this idea of like soulmate containment
Yeah.
to our behavior on social media. Like they talk about not cropping your partner out of photos.
Which, come on, we're all guilty of that sometimes.
Right. But it speaks to something deeper. In this age of social media, it's easy to project an image of our relationships that isn't entirely accurate. We might emphasize the positive and downplay the challenges. And while that's normal to an extent, it's important to ask ourselves, why? Are we seeking validation? Are we afraid to show vulnerability? These are things worth reflecting on.
That's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in how relationships look online versus how they actually feel in real life. Speaking of real life, this article doesn't shy away from the fact that relationships take work, even the good ones. They use this great analogy, comparing maintaining a relationship to maintaining a proton pack.
It's brilliant, actually, because just like neglecting maintenance on a complex piece of equipment will lead to problems, neglecting the needs of your relationship can lead to issues down the line.
That's such a good analogy. So, how do we keep our metaphorical proton packs in working order? Well, they talk about regular check-ins with your partner, making time for date nights, even if it's just the office marathon, and finding ways to grow together.
Those are all great strategies for, keeping that spark alive and nurturing the connection. It's about making a conscious effort to prioritize your relationship and put in the time and effort to help it thrive. Research actually shows that couples who engage in novel and exciting activities together report higher levels of relationship satisfaction. It's about breaking out of those routines and creating new shared experiences.
It's so true. It's funny. We started with this playful article about ghost busting, and we ended up talking about some really important aspects of building and maintaining lasting relationships.
It's amazing what a little humor can do, right? It makes these insights somehow more memorable and maybe even a little easier to swallow, even when we're talking about those deeper emotional needs.
Absolutely. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise, especially on such an unusual topic.
It's been my pleasure. One of the most common things I hear from couples is that they feel like they've lost that spark. But the truth is, relationships require ongoing effort and attention.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, relationships are like gardens. You have to tend to them if you want them to grow.
Exactly. And just like a gardener has to, adjust their approach depending on the season or the specific needs of their plants. We have to be adaptable in our relationships too. What worked in the early days might need some tweaking as we grow and evolve, both individually and as a couple. The key is to stay curious about each other, to communicate openly, and to never underestimate the power of small, meaningful gestures.
Those small gestures are so important. It's easy to let the busyness of life get in the way, but taking the time to really connect, even in simple ways, can make a world of difference.
It's about finding those little ways to show appreciation, to remind each other why you fell in love in the first place.
Yeah.
Maybe it's making their favorite meal, leaving a surprise note, or simply asking about their day and really listening to the answer. These gestures might seem small, but they speak volumes about how much you care. And you know what's so interesting? Studies have shown that couples who express gratitude towards each other tend to be more satisfied in their relationships and are also more likely to navigate challenges effectively.
That makes a lot of sense. Gratitude is such a powerful force, not just in romantic relationships, but in life in general, right? It helps us appreciate what we have and to focus on the positive.
Absolutely. And when we approach our relationships with a sense of gratitude, it shifts our perspective. We're more likely to see the good in our partners, to appreciate their efforts, and to find joy in the, everyday moments.
It's so easy to get caught up in wanting things to be a certain way, but maybe the real key is learning to appreciate what we already have.
I love that thought. Maybe that's something for all of us to ponder.
I think so too. Well, on that note, we'll leave you to do just that. This has been The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and remember, sometimes the best advice comes from the most unexpected places.